I was a bit surprised because this guy has faced allegations of doing business through his company with the government while he was sitting at the cabinet table.
Justin Trudeau and his government were the only people in charge of the immigration system over the last 9 years.
Justin Trudeau wants to be deciding what kind of doorknobs you get put in your bedroom or what kind of plumbing is used, whereas Pierre Poilievre says, get out of the way of the people who actually build homes, stop the bureaucracy, and lower the cost.
Is Trudeau's immigration policy destroying Canada? Brian Lilley thinks so, and he's got the facts to back it up. But here's the real shocker. It's happening faster than anyone predicted. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Want to know how 1 million new residents in 9 months is affecting your life? We're diving into the numbers, and trust us, you'll want to hear this before it's too late.
In the last 2 years, our population's grown really fast, like baby boom fast. Increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. Every year, the government determines the right number of permanent residents that we want to admit. That's how it's been done for decades. But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway. Historically, Canada's annual immigration plan just looked at permanent residents. The number of temporary students and workers that we admitted each year was left to the demands of the economy. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
Brian Lilley saw this coming years ago. While others dismissed his warnings, Lilley kept sounding the alarm about Canada's unsustainable immigration policies. He wasn't just making wild guesses, he was connecting the dots that others refused to see. Year after year, Lilley's message stayed consistent. Canada's immigration targets were spiraling out of control. He pointed out how the numbers kept climbing, without proper planning or infrastructure to support the influx. But Trudeau and his supporters brushed off these concerns, labeling them as fear-mongering. We've all heard Trudeau's grand promises about immigration. He painted a rosy picture of economic growth and prosperity, claiming that bringing in more people would solve Canada's problems. Diversity is our strength, he'd say, glossing over the practical challenges of such rapid population growth. But while Trudeau was busy making speeches, the reality on the ground was shifting dramatically. The gap between his promises and the actual impact on Canadians' daily lives kept widening. Housing prices skyrocketed, wages stagnated, and public services struggled to keep up. Now here's the bombshell that proves Lilley right. In just 9 months, Canada added 1 million new residents. Let that sink in. 1 million people. That's like adding the entire population of Ottawa to the country in less than a year.
There are 2 kinds of immigration in Canada. The one you probably think of most is permanent immigration, like when families come to Canada to settle, call it home. Temporary immigration. Temporary residents are people who come to Canada for a limited time, like international students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school. But after the pandemic, our economy came roaring back quickly. We needed a lot of workers fast.
It's an unprecedented surge that's stretching Canada's resources to the breaking point. Even Trudeau can't ignore the consequences anymore. In a rare moment of honesty, he recently admitted that immigration has grown beyond Canada's ability to absorb. It's a stunning reversal from his previous rhetoric, and it shows just how dire the situation has become. But if you think Trudeau's admission is shocking, wait until you hear about the real-world impacts this immigration surge is having on everyday Canadians. The consequences are far worse than even Trudeau is willing to admit, and they're affecting every aspect of life in this country. While politicians play word games, ordinary Canadians are facing a harsh new reality. Imagine waking up one day to find your city has suddenly grown by 50% overnight. That's essentially what's happening to our nation, and the consequences are staggering. Remember when finding an apartment didn't feel like winning the lottery? Those days are long gone. Canada's housing crisis has reached a boiling point, and it's all thanks to Trudeau's reckless immigration policies. We're talking about a country with the fewest houses per capita in the G7, despite having more than enough land to build on. It's a recipe for disaster, and guess what? The disaster has arrived. The numbers don't lie. Canada's population is growing at a breakneck pace, but housing construction can't keep up. It's simple math, folks. More people, same number of homes equals skyrocketing prices and desperate Canadians. And it's not just about permanent residents. We're being flooded with temporary foreign workers and international students, all competing for the same limited housing stock. But wait, it gets worse. While Trudeau brags about economic growth, the reality is far grimmer. The Royal Bank of Canada dropped a bombshell. Our per capita GDP has been shrinking in 6 of the last 7 quarters.
Like I said, immigration is based on demand. When we set our targets, we look at every province and territory. We ask the premiers, what are the gaps in your workforce? Is your population growing or getting older? We laid out a plan that sets targets for both permanent and temporary residents. This way, we're getting the full breakdown of people coming into our country so we can prepare the homes and infrastructure needed to support us.
We've had a chronic shortage of labor for the last decade. It is the #1 issue of all manufacturers across Canada. So we think there needs to be more, push the pedal to the floor to bring more people into Canada.
We field calls from businesses, CEOs, economic experts, all sharing their thoughts on where we should set our target.
In plain English, we're in a recession that's masked by population growth. More people doesn't mean more prosperity. It means the pie is being sliced into smaller and smaller pieces. And let's talk about those international students. Over 800,000 of them poured into Canada last year alone. That's more than the number of permanent residents. They're not just here to study, they're working, they're renting, and they're pushing our system to the breaking point. Healthcare? Don't even get me started. Millions of Canadians can't find a family doctor. Wait times for surgeries are through the roof. Every new resident puts more strain on a system that's already on life support. It's a crisis that's affecting real people right now. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about everyday Canadians struggling to keep a roof over their heads. It's about families unable to find affordable housing, forced to make impossible choices between paying rent and putting food on the table. Trudeau's policies aren't just changing statistics, they're reshaping lives, and not for the better. But here's the kicker. This crisis goes far beyond just housing and healthcare. The full scope of what's happening to our country is even more shocking. And trust me, you won't believe what's coming next. Trudeau's reckless immigration policies are tearing Canada apart at the seams. Our country is facing a perfect storm of social and economic chaos, and it's only getting worse. Housing prices are through the roof, wages are in the gutter, and our healthcare system is on life support.
Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn.
Canada is in the middle of a huge labor shortage.
Temporary foreign workers became such a significant part of our workforce that it'd be a mistake not to include them when we plan our immigration levels. When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents, but most return home. So back to this year's plan.
This isn't just a temporary blip. It's a full-blown crisis that's reshaping Canada before our very eyes. We can't sit back and watch our country crumble. It's time to demand real accountability from our leaders. We need realistic immigration targets that actually make sense for Canada's economy and infrastructure. If we don't act now, this crisis will spiral even further out of control, leaving a broken nation for our children and grandchildren. Wake up, Canada. Our future is on the line. If we don't put the brakes on this runaway immigration train, we'll be living in a country we don't even recognize. The clock is ticking, and the fate of Canada hangs in the balance. Are we going to let Trudeau's disastrous policies destroy everything we hold dear, or are we going to fight back and save our nation?